Back in 2019 to 2020, we all remember sort of the COVID period when things shut down. A lot of us were ordering things online, and there was a ton of investment that went into e-commerce for a number of years. We recommend advertisers have diverse sets of creative, because what that does is it forces the algorithm to share your content with different and diverse sets of audiences so you can expand your audience base.
Today, we are pulling back the curtain on performance marketing and the shift from growth at all costs to sustainable profitability.
Having an agency that aligns with you on ad spend, on profitability, meaning real dollars and cents, is really important, because at that point, your agency starts feeling like an extension of your team.
Welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on performance marketing and the shift from growth at all costs to sustainable profitability. In an era where digital algorithms change by the hour, how do small brands compete with global giants without breaking the bank? Joining us today is Uzair Chutani, co-founder of Accelerate Labs. Uzair is a veteran of the tech world, having served as a director of marketing solutions for Facebook Canada and played a key role in expanding Facebook's global footprint. Now, he leads an agency founded by former Facebook leaders, driving growth for iconic brands like Cotton and David's Tea. He's also a mentor at Toronto Business Development Center, helping the next generation of founders navigate the complex digital landscape with an owner's mindset. So let's get started. Uzair, welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Uzair, before we start, I would like you to share your entrepreneurial journey, like how you got started.
Absolutely. We founded Accelerate Labs in 2018. I founded the company with my partner, Nikat. Both of us had previously worked at Facebook Canada as part of the founding team. So we had been in the trenches together for 5 years. And, when we started in 2018, we identified an opportunity for medium-sized and small-sized businesses that were underserved in the market. And so our goal was to help those businesses grow. We've been on this journey now for 8+ years and still enjoying it very much.
Thank you. Uzair, the industry has shifted from, burning cash for market share to a hard focus on sustainable, unit economics. Why is the era of growth at all cost, officially over, and how should Canadian small business owners pivot their strategy to survive?
Great question, SK. I'll say this. Back in 2019, 2020, we all remember sort of the COVID period when things shut down. There was a huge push in the direction of e-commerce. A lot of us were ordering things online. And there was a ton of investment that went into e-commerce for a number of years. And there was a lot of push from investors to grab market share by any means necessary, even if that meant losing money up front because there was investor capital and the business didn't have to be self-sustaining. Since then, a lot of the investor focus has shifted towards artificial intelligence, which we'll talk about later. But as a result, what has happened is that capital has dried up and the businesses have had to focus on being self-reliant. They have to go and generate profitable revenue, not revenue at all costs, in order to continue growing that business. And what we've seen, unfortunately, in the last couple of years is some of the businesses that were sort of in the growth at all costs mindset have unfortunately vanished away. However, a lot of sustainable businesses, have switched gears and they've gone towards a direction where they're generating profits and using those profits to reinvest in the business and drive sustainable, resilient growth.
As you mentioned COVID, Uzair, what was the main core lesson you learned from the COVID?
COVID was difficult for a lot of different businesses. We all had to adapt. And at Accelerate Labs, we did a lot of work with the travel industry. And so a lot of our travel industry clients, unfortunately, had to shut down, at least temporarily, and we had to pivot. We doubled down on
So your main focus was on travel industries that time.
At that time, we were split travel and e-commerce.
Oh.
And what we found was that our travel split, unfortunately, was declining, but our e-commerce was rising. And, thankfully, we were able to spot that very early. And we shifted our company's focus and the training and education of our folks to primarily focus in retail, commerce, and that allowed us to, survive and sustain and thrive through that period.
Yeah. So after that, your main focus shifted to e-commerce, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the Facebook, as you have worked in Facebook from 2012 to 2017, as you mentioned. Let's talk about about the Facebook insider advantage. Having worked inside, Facebook algorithms teams, you have a unique perspective there on how the system actually, prioritizes the content. Being a Facebook insider, Uzair, can you share something you learned at Facebook that businesses can use, to compete against brands with much larger budgets?
This is a question that's close to my heart. This is the reason why we started Accelerate Labs, right? We found that there was an underserved market in the mid-size and SMB businesses. And so I'll share with you what, we often share with our partners. It's daunting to go up with some of the giant brands that we're surrounded by. And, the fear is that they will just outbid us. They will just put more money on every bid. And, we have to dispel that myth because the way Facebook's algorithm works, it actually takes into account more than just the advertiser bid. There's actually 3 components that make up an actual bid for showing up in a Facebook feed. The advertiser bid is one piece, obviously, but there's 2 other pieces. One is the interaction rate with that advertiser. And that includes the click-through rate of your ad. That includes the conversion rate of the landing page. And the third aspect is the user feedback and commentary. And so a total bid actually takes into account all these different aspects. For mid-size and SMB businesses, the trick is to ensure that you have really robust landing page experiences where people are able to convert and compelling ad creative that drives clicks and interactions to make up for that highest bid and to give yourself a chance to win even if your advertiser bid is not the highest.
Right. So I have a tough question for you. You work with both Meta and Google.
Yes.
So which platform do you recommend for small business owners when they're starting out for digital advertising?
Yeah. So I think both the platforms over time become really important and they have their strengths and weaknesses. We find Meta is a great place to start to drive discovery. Instagram has been a real destination for brand discovery versus, the Google platforms, which tend to do really well in terms of education through YouTube, as well as closing that intent through platforms like Google Search.
Okay, thank you. So that's your experience that you shared from Facebook. That's really a game-changing perspective, Uzair. It proves that understanding the logic behind the platform is more valuable than having a massive and advertisement spend. Now, once you understand the algorithm, the focus shifts from technical targeting to the actual content the AI is analyzing. We have moved into a phase where, where AI has largely replaced manual targeting. Can you share, what AI tools the small business owners should use when they are planning their digital strategy?
Artificial intelligence has played a massive role in, just in the last 18 months in terms of changing the advertising and marketing landscape. Tools like, our very own Canadian product Motion, which allows for creative analysis, and others like it have really helped businesses gain insights quickly that drive performance. I'll share a quick example with you. On a platform like Meta, the artificial intelligence has changed the way we think about creative. In the past, we would discover a winning piece of creative for an advertiser, and we would make small iterations to drive more conversions. With the advent of AI, the Meta algorithm treats that differently now. In fact, the platform optimizes better if we're using diverse sets of creative. The reason is that it doesn't treat a piece of creative as a single piece of content. In fact, it looks at all the different elements within a single image or video, and it identifies, a human, a pet, a mountain, a lake, And it actually uses those individual components that make up a creative and targets people based on what you like. So if you love, dogs and you have a pet and there's a creative that has that, then you're likely to be served that piece of content.
Right.
And so what we recommend advertisers do in this day and age is to have diverse sets of creative, because what that does is it forces the algorithm to share your content with different and diverse sets of audiences so you can expand your audience pools. If all the creative looked the same, it would just be one type of audience. And so that's just one example of how AI has changed how we think about creative for Meta.
We will pause here for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back to talk about what it really takes for Canadian brands to win in the US market.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's jump straight into cross-border growth and unpack the biggest mistakes brands make when expanding into the US market. Uzair, let's talk about, expanding to the US market. Accelerate Labs has successfully guided many partners through international launches, but the US market remains a notoriously, a difficult hurdle for Canadian brands. What is the biggest mistake Canadian brands make when expanding into the US, and how can they build a roadmap for global scale?
The US market represents a very lucrative opportunity for Canadian brands. It represents, ease of shipping because of the massive land border, 10x the audiences. So it is,
The market is very huge.
Exactly. No question. The market is huge and important. And so what we recommend our partners and sort of, the challenges that we see is often when partners come to us saying that they are having a hard time in the US, we often find that the challenge is they're treating the US as a monolith, meaning they treat the entire United States as one. The US is 10x our size and population, and it is diverse. The audiences, on the East Coast versus the West Coast versus the South, very different cultures, very different people, very different approach, types of interests. And so what we typically recommend to our Canadian partners who want to expand to the US is to first identify pockets of success prior to any advertising in the US if there's certain markets where they have a little bit of a foothold. If they have that, then that represents a great opportunity to turn that into a test market for messaging and content that's going to resonate there. Localizing is very important. And it's important for a few reasons. The obvious one is targeting and creative. But there's another reason. Because of the size of the US and the competition being so intense and fierce, it is very expensive for brands to try and quote unquote boil the ocean. It's better to focus on a smaller market, prove out a model, replicate that model in a similar market, and then bit by bit try to gain market share in the US. That is the right approach for, a mid-sized or small-sized business as they think about expanding into the US.
And how your organization Accelerate help Canadian businesses, those who are looking to expand in US?
We have a ton of experience expanding into the US markets, the types of creatives that appeal in different markets across the different verticals that we work in. So within e-commerce, we work primarily in apparel, fashion, jewelry, and a number of other sub-verticals. So we have a lot of experience with messaging, resonance testing, a partner network that expands and helps with shipping logistics and things like that. And so with all of that experience, we've recently onboarded partners who help with things like tariffs for Canadian businesses to understand sort of the realities of working within the US market. And by having that support group and that experience, we're able to help accelerate their intro into the US market.
And what is the easiest way to get anyone to get connected with you, sir?
The easiest way is to reach out to me directly via LinkedIn or via my email, uzair@acceleratelabs.com.
Uzair, this question is very, very important and very close to my heart. As an immigrant entrepreneur, what is your, giving the situation right now in this part of the world, what is your advice to another immigrant entrepreneur who is just starting out?
Yeah, starting out is hard and lonely. It is not straightforward. There are a lot of challenges working in a new market, trying to understand things. Now, given the job market is also very difficult right now, I think a lot of people are thinking about entrepreneurship as a route to actually be able to take learnings that they may have, had from another market and look to apply them here. I think the number one thing for entrepreneurs is to not give up. Because there's nobody holding you accountable. You must hold yourself accountable. You must not give up. You must continue to strive. And, I'll share an anecdote from our own experience with USK. At Accelerate, it took us a number of years before we hired our first employee. We had a great network, but we wanted to do things right. We had our own ethos, our own principles of how we wanted to, operate within a very messy landscape that is the agency landscape. So Niket and I toiled hard until we found the traction, and then we started to build a team, and then the business grew. But it wasn't a straight line. The first couple of years are the hardest, and that's where that perseverance and resiliency takes entrepreneurs far.
Right. Entrepreneurial journey is always a bumpy road. It's not an easy ride. Uzair, before we wrap up, one core message you want Canadian SME listeners to remember, when they are considering a new agency to help drive the business growth.
Yeah, agency selection is something that is faced by a lot of businesses, and it can be difficult. It can be challenging, and I think that one of the things that a lot of businesses kind of gravitate towards is the price tag, and small businesses are often kind of looking for a value-based solution, so they're often going towards sort of the lowest price, and large businesses go on the other side. They look at, hey, they're expensive, so they must be good, and my advice would be to not just prioritize the price tag. Really look to understand the following things. Number one, vertical expertise. Has this agency and the people that are going to be on my team, not just the leaders, worked in the verticals? Do they have brand names on the roster that I recognize from my industry? I think that vertical industry knowledge is really important because it shortcuts the path to effectiveness. When your agency already knows your vertical, they're able to help move that much faster. So that's number one. Number two is the team itself, the seniority and experience of the team. Often, and this is more true at the larger agencies, the teams that are working on accounts can sometimes be more junior, while the senior experienced folks are sort of coming in early on. It's important to understand who's going to be the day-to-day counterpart to make sure that they are the right fit for what your company is looking for and what growth stage they are. And then last but not least is aligning on business metrics. A lot of times agencies will talk about things like, we'll build you this many pieces of creative, we'll get you this type of click-through rate, we'll get you this type of cost per click. These are platform metrics. Your bank does not recognize any of these, right? Having an agency that aligns with you on revenue, on ad spend, on profitability, on cost per acquisition, meaning real dollars and cents, and connecting it back to business metrics, that's really important. Because at that point, your agency starts feeling like an extension of your team rather than just an external vendor that's working with you. So I would advise agencies that are working with businesses to prioritize these types of metrics, and for small businesses and medium-sized businesses to really ask these questions so they find the right partner.
Those are very important points. Just you have mentioned, the team behind it, experience, and the vertical. So thank you so much for sharing those important points for our listeners. Uzair, it has been a pleasure hosting you today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experience with our audience today.
Thank you very much, SK. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and speak with you today.
That was really an insightful conversation with Uzair Chutani, co-founder at Accelerate Labs. We explored the end of growth at all cost. We also discussed the power of AI-driven creative and the roadmap for taking Canadian brands global. Thank you for tuning into the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more expert insights and resources. Visit our website at CanadianSME.ca for more valuable tools and resources. A special thank you to our partners, UPS, A1 Global College, ADP, our HR partner, and Google for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses in Canada.